Evening, I'm Spot On Weather meteorologist Matthew Euler, and welcome to my latest video. I'm a little bit late on this. I was hoping to get this cut last night, but I was pushed off a little bit to the right with my scheduling. So I'm going to go ahead and do a rare Saturday evening teleconnections discussion here on the 28th of October 2023. And of course, we are getting closer to Halloween, and I really like this picture tonight as the title graphic. Big full moon, which we have out there right now actually, along with some glowing pumpkins or jack-o'-lanterns, some bats in the sky. We got, the bare trees here. Some of you may already be starting to see a lot of these leaves come down off the trees at the northern portions of the U.S., and just these trick-or-treaters going out with their little pumpkin pails. Yeah, it brings back a lot of great memories from Halloween in the past. We'll go right into the teleconnections discussion, and we'll have some thoughts here as we move ahead on what's to come in the weather. Starting with the 500 millibar height anomalies, instead of breaking down every single individual upper level ridge and trough across the northern hemisphere, I decided to encapsulate the information of what's going on at the 500 millibar level, about 18,000 feet, mid layers of the atmosphere, where the shortwave troughs and these shortwave ridges are located. I went ahead and just kind of consolidated the information by running, going west to east with every little trough and ridge. So I'm going just to encapsulate the most important features across the northern hemispheric pattern at 500 millibars right now. Again, my main focus is just north of the equator in the northern hemisphere. So, there's a lot of activity down here in the southern hemisphere, but I will not focus on that. So, what's going on at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet above the ground? Generally, we have anomalous upper level heights that are associated with upper level ridges. Generally located, you see a lot of these brown colorings and these orange colorings located across the Pacific sector, the Pacific side of the northern hemisphere. We have one really strong upper level high that's positioned generally around Kodiak, Alaska, and kind of extending a little bit further south, but it does ridge northwestward into Alaska, this very strong anomalous upper level high height center. We also see another high height center just to its west, back closer to, let's see, that would be just the southeastern portion of Siberia, Russia there. Additionally, we see another strong high height center, which has really been the dominant feature synoptically for the eastern United States, really over the last 3 days. And there are signs that this upper level high height center, this upper level ridge, will finally start getting suppressed to the south as this upper level trough over the northern plains really is making its move to the southeast at this point in time. So that's going to suppress this upper level high height center over the eastern U.S. We have seen just very warm, high temperatures, specifically during the daytime. For example, in southeastern Virginia today, my location in the Hampton Roads, Virginia cities reached 85 degrees today for a high. 85, the AC was running. And then further north as well, up into New England, it's been very mild the last few days. We do see some major changes on the horizon, and I'll get to that in a moment. For the upper level troughs, that's the green and the blue coloring. That is associated with unsettled conditions and cooler than normal temperatures usually. We have an upper level trough there in the Northwest Pacific, just to the east of Japan. We have another upper level trough beneath these upper level ridges, generally over the North Central Pacific Ocean. And then we see the other major player here that's going to be impacting much of the United States as we head into Halloween, this upper level trough. And this is from yesterday, so I'm a little stale, a little old on this upper level height anomaly chart. This green and blue shading is expanded again into the Midwest today, further to the southeast. But I generally wanted to keep this to show you how things have progressed. You see another deep upper level closed low to the west of the British Isles as well, and there's another one up here in northwestern Siberia. All right, so now let's discuss the Madden-Julian oscillation, MJO phases, and areas of enhanced convection. Again, MJO phases range between phase 1 right on through phase 8. And generally what we're looking for is area of increased vertical air motion, rising air motion, areas of increased convection and thunderstorm, shower and thunderstorm activity. In these general areas, wherever you see that that more organized convection, upward vertical motion, or rising air, generally see how it can vary from phase 1 here around Madagascar, working our way east all the way to the international dateline. So let's see, where are we at today for the MJO phases? Well, here's the latest Jeff's V12 forecast, generally showing that we're currently in weak phase 8, and we're going to, this red line here kind of goes into the last few days of October before the MJO. So we're going to work our way from a weak phase 8 into a phase 1 before the MJO goes back in this small inner circle closer to the center of the diagram, and that is indicative of a null phase or minimal impacts through 10 November. You see the temperature composites over here on the left. We're in phase 8 right now, so you see the blue coloring that generally is indicative of below normal temperatures, the yellows and oranges above normal temperatures. So phase 8 right now would indicate cooler than normal temperatures from Montana, the northern plains, upper Midwest, right to the East Coast and up to New England, while the mildest temperatures in a phase 8 would be, this time of year, would be generally south of Interstate 40, generally across Texas, expanding to Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. If we get into a phase 1, you kind of see what happens for the months of October, November, December. Phase 1 is actually a little bit more milder along the eastern seaboard up to New England, with the coldest temperatures in the western U.S. as well as the northern plain states. So let's keep an eye on things and how things transition. Now, here's some additional MJO forecast. I pulled the CFS V2 extended outlook from the 27th of October right on through 25 November. Generally in the same position as we'd expect here in late October. We're in weak phase 8 for the MJO, working our way into phase 1 with time, and then back into this small inner circle here at the center of the diagram into the null phase. For the ECMWF from October 27th to the 10th of November, generally operating in the same areas, weak in phase 8 and weak in phase 1 for the MJO before rotating back into the center of the diagram for the null phase. And then the Bureau of Meteorology, this particular model, the BOM-M, Bureau of Meteorology model, extended from the 25th of October to the 23rd of November, right around the Thanksgiving time period, is a little bit different than these two, isn't it? Then again, these only go out, well, let's see, this one goes out, CFS V2 on the far left, the 25th of November, the center European MJO forecast of the 10th of November. But look at the BOM extended through the 23rd of November, showing things going out more strongly into phase 8. But in general, the model consensus is good between all of these models, whether I show you Jeff's V12, the GFS ensemble, weak phase 8, weak phase 1, into the inner circle in the center of the diagram, null phase, minimal impact. And then the same thing here, models in generally good agreement, whether we're looking at CFS V2, the European, or the Bureau of Meteorology model. Let's take a look at the latest El Nino update. Things are starting to change in Nino 3.4 region. Here is the latest temperature anomalies globally, looking across the globe. All right, and whenever you see the orange coloring, that indicates above normal sea surface temperatures, where you see the blue coloring, that's below normal sea surface temperatures. Do you see much blue at all in the northern hemisphere right now? I mean, from China all the way, working our way to the west coast of the United States, working our way into the Gulf of Mexico, working our way into the western Atlantic, all the way to Europe here, to the British Isles, Portugal and Spain, down off the coast of northern Africa. There just isn't much blue, is there? There's not much in the way of below normal temperature anomalies anywhere in the northern hemisphere right now in these oceans. It's one of the biggest things we've noted over time. If you pull back sea surface temperature anomalies, let's say back into the early 80s, this map will look probably very much different, have a lot more below normal sea surface temperatures across the northern hemisphere. So we have some very warm waters globally right now. One of the key things that stands out is this darker orangish color, orangish red color here off the coast of South America, extending westward towards the international dateline. That's associated with that El Nino that's currently ongoing. If you look over here, one more thing I want to point out here on the temperature anomaly, the sea surface temperature anomaly chart here on the left. Notice this above normal water as well, south of Greenland, southwest of Greenland. That's indicative of a positive Atlantic multidecadal oscillation, positive AMO. So that's an important thing as well, and I'll describe this at the very end of this presentation. The CDAS, Nino 3.4 index, things are starting to move upward now in the sea surface temperature anomalies. If you notice, we pretty much were situated from September 30th right on to October 14th or so, it's pretty much a flat line situation, where there was very little change, warmer or cooler in that Nino 3.4 region. But now look at how things are starting to get a little bit spicier here, with some major climbs in the sea surface temperature anomalies in Nino 3.4. In fact, now I updated these today, the 28th of October. Currently, we're situated at 1.38 degrees Celsius above normal water temps from climatology in that Nino 3.4 region. So plus 1.38 degrees Celsius now. We're still in that moderate strength El Nino territory, and I'll break those classifications down on the next slide. But really, things are starting to really spruce up here as far as warming in the Nino 3.4 region. We do have, again, kind of what I described here. I won't really rehash these bullets here. I kind of broke this down nicely. One thing I forgot to mention over here on this chart on the left as well for sea surface temperature anomalies is this anomalously darker blue area, which is associated with cooler than normal waters across the eastern Indian Ocean. That's an association with a positive Indian Ocean dipole. Here are the classifications for El Nino, okay? What does NOAA use to classify the El Nino intensity? They look at this box, Nino 3.4, and you kind of see where it's located at. So just keep that in mind as we move forward in time here. Well, hopefully nothing's going to go bad here. I'm seeing some weird like marks here on my computer right now. Okay, I guess it's okay. Let's hope the recording works out okay when you watch this. Anyway, we're in the moderate territory for the El Nino. You see moderate ranges between 1 and 1.5 degrees Celsius above normal water temperatures during El Nino to be a moderate El Nino. Now, if we get to the point where we exceed this, get above 1.5 degrees Celsius in Nino 3.4 region, we're going to now spruce things up to a strong El Nino strength. Okay, you kind of see what those values are here. I included those. In the Nino 3.4 region, this is a latitude-longitude box that describes it, which is just right in here. All right, let's keep going here. This is the latest El Nino forecast. NOAA Climate Prediction Center, probabilities 95 to 100% for El Nino for the upcoming winter season. It's pretty much a for sure going to happen type thing, okay, for the winter. We do notice these El Nino bars, these orangish reddish bars eventually get shorter and shorter with time, but that indicates a lower probability of El Nino conditions, but that really doesn't kick in until April, May, and June, so after the winter season. Look at the latest projections from the IRI, showing the various models, dynamical and statistical models. Dynamical models are indicated by this maroonish line, the statistical models by the solid green line. And so the dynamical models are still showing El Nino 3.4, those waters peaking at about 2 degrees Celsius above normal between November through December and January, before we start seeing a slow downturn or weakening or cooling of those waters in Nino 3.4 region. Now that's the dynamical models remain the strongest, and then the statistical models in the solid green line, you notice the big difference here between that maroon and that green line. Statistical models aren't as bullish on the overall warming in Nino 3.4 region. My thought is, and it always has been, that I think we're going to split the difference between the dynamical and statistical models. So I think we're going to be sitting around 1.7, maybe 1.8 at the peak. 1.8 degrees Celsius above normal in Nino 3.4 region based on the latest data here. Looking at the latest update on the quasi-biennial oscillation, the QBO. QBO is generally in the easterly phase. This is a radio sound observation, a RAOB, that was, it's a weather balloon that's launched with specific transmitter data. A transmitter attached to the neck of the balloon transmits data back to a ground station, and this is what was taken from the RAOB sounding in Singapore, showing a negative or easterly QBO. Anytime you're in the negative values on this side of the diagram here, that's a negative or easterly QBO. So you kind of see at 30 millibars here, we are well in the negative territory. In fact, a QBO at negative 25 value, if you look at, you just draw a line straight down from this little dot here. So QBO, easterly negative state as we conclude the month of October. And easterly phase is really the forecast for the upcoming winter for the QBO. Now let's identify some of the teleconnections. Arctic oscillation, AO. Bottom line, negative AO, colder temperatures Midwest to the East Coast. With a positive AO, we have a zonal flow, west to east flow. The coldest air remains locked or bottled up over the Arctic area. The polar vortex is generally much stronger with a positive Arctic oscillation, and the polar vortex is much weaker when you get a negative Arctic oscillation, especially a strongly negative Arctic oscillation like we saw in the winter of 2009-2010. Let's take a look at the forecast now. European EPS AO 50 perturb members. The green solid line represents your average of all the model members, all the 50 perturb model members here as part of this ensemble system. Green is the average of all the model members. So you kind of see what's going on here. And I mentioned this in social media a few days ago. We generally see a little bit of a stronger signal to negative territory for the AO, and that goes all the way out to the 11th of November. You kind of see this little bit of a dip between the 1st of November and the 3rd of November as well. We recently had a stretching of the stratospheric polar vortex, and this could very well be a result of that stretching out, where we're seeing a decreasing values to the negative side for the AO. Looking at the EPS, this is the 50 perturb members, but this is the 46-day forecast further out in time, all the way out to 11 December. You see how negative, where the green line is, it's in the negative territory here, right? Below the zero line, negative values of the AO all the way out to maybe about the 18th or 19th of November, and then it climbs slowly, mainly neutral after that point in early December. Looking at the NOAA Jeffs V12 AO, now this particular GFS ensemble has 30 perturb members as part of its ensemble system, but in general you still see a negative tendency in agreement with the other two I just showed you, becoming closer to neutral by the 9th and 10th of November. Let's take a look at the NAO now, North Atlantic Oscillation Forecast. Big differences here in the jet stream configuration between a negative NAO phase here on the right and a positive NAO phase on the left. More zonal west to east jet stream, milder Pacific air typically across the United States when you have a positive NAO phase. This happened really strongly in the winter of 2019-2020. I remember driving back from the Midwest to come back to the East Coast in Virginia, and the temperature was 75 degrees on December 29th in 2019. Very, very depressing if you want winter weather, right? But anyway, we had a very strongly positive NAO that particular winter, 2019-2020. The jet stream was pretty much setting up in a west to east manner. It was also stronger, had stronger speeds across the Atlantic, made things very warm and wet across the British Isles and Northern Europe, Sweden, Finland as well, Scandinavia, that area. And then with a negative NAO phase, like we saw in the winter of 2009, 2010, boy, that was just a nice winter if you really like cold and snow, because we had this deep carved out trough, this big dip in the jet stream along the eastern seaboard, and a huge upper level ridge upstream of it over the North Atlantic. And then another dip in the jet stream, another trough across southern and central Europe. Here's the forecast. European EPS, NAO, 50 perturb members, showing, again, pay attention to this green solid line. That's indicative of the average of all the 50 perturbed ensemble model members. So we have a negative tendency, slightly negative to neutral right through the forecast period, right out to the 11th of November, according to the EPS. Now the EPS extended, 50 perturb members. So both are 50 perturb members, but this is the extended 46-day forecast from the EPS, showing a near neutral tendency to the NAO between 1 and 6 November. And then it goes back down negative again, really through, like, usually, let's see, that'd be 6 to about the 16th of November, into negative territory for the NAO, and then back to neutral all the way to 11 December. And then the NOAA Jeffs V12 NAO 30 perturb members. So this has 20 less members, model members, as part of this suite, the forecasting suite, but generally showing a negative trend of the NAO, working its way closer to neutral after 5 November. Looking at the Pacific North American PNA forecast, okay? Big thing here. Now, PNA has really been a strong influencer on the weather regimes across the eastern U.S. so far this fall. Just about 7 to 10 days ago, we had a huge ridge, upper level ridge position over the western parts of North America, with milder temperatures there and a downstream trough and much cooler temperatures across the eastern U.S. That pattern completely flip-flopped. We went from a positive PNA back to a negative PNA where we had now troughing out over the Pacific Northwest and the western US, and we had a nice ridge that's been just keeping temperatures very summer-like from the Gulf Coast to the mid-Atlantic over the last 4 or 5 days. So the PNA, whether it's a positive PNA or a negative PNA, really does matter for the sensible weather across the United States. Positive PNA, colder in the east, stormier in the east, warmer and drier in the west, positive PNA. Negative PNA, the opposite, colder and stormier in the west, and warmer and dry in the east. What's the forecast here? Let's take a look. European EPS, PNA, 50 perturbed members, shows a negative tendency. This is what I was talking about. It went from very strongly positive now to a negative situation right on through the 30th of October. But then the tide changes, doesn't it? We go back to the positive side of things for the PNA, and that is going to be responsible for causing lowering heights, lowering thicknesses across the eastern U.S. in a much colder pattern here as we begin the month of November. And then the PNA, according to this model, comes back down closer to neutral between the 8th and the 11th of November. The EPS, this is the 50 perturbed member, but this one goes out 46 days, the extended outlook to 11 December. Negative right now, but it's going strongly positive again by the 1st of November for sure, and into about the 4th or 5th of November. And then it's going to go to neutral, near neutral territory, right on through the 11th of December. The Eastern Pacific Oscillation Forecast, EPO. All right, we have seen, in addition to the PNA really influencing our weather, we've seen this Eastern Pacific Oscillation also influencing the weather. When we get a negative EPO, we have a huge upper level ridge over the Gulf of Alaska. What this does is this builds up the heights and causes a lot of milder temperatures into Alaska, and the jet stream goes up and over the top of this huge ridge with a negative EPO, and colder air and Arctic highs come off from the Arctic area, come right on down through Canada and into the United States with a negative EPO. This troughing is going to be, again, much colder across a large portion of the U.S. plus more stormy. A positive EPO, on the other hand, we have a strong Aleutian low in place of the upper level high there, that strong ridge. Now we have a stronger Aleutian low, and it pumps in a general stronger west to east jet stream. We get more milder Pacific air across the entire United States from the west to the east coast. So that's why this teleconnection is so very important. Looking at the forecast, whoa, I can't even see it over here in the bottom left on the European EPS 50 perturbed member forecast. I can't even see the solid green line here. This is the 46-day extended outlook, and it's gone off the chart in excess of -5 magnitude value. But you notice it starts sharply climbing back to neutral type territory through the 16th of November before going negative yet again. So we'll have to keep an eye on this teleconnection. This is the NOAA Jeffs V12 EPO 30 perturbed members, sharply negative, very similar to the EPS 46-day outlook. And then we see a steadier gradual incline or getting closer to neutral after 6 November, right on through the 12th of November. Let's take a look at the polar vortex in the stratosphere. Let's look at the latest update on this, the GFS model. This was yesterday's view of this. Now what we're looking at here on these charts is stratospheric temperatures plus anomalies. You see the scale here on the right of each of these graphics. So oranges indicate above normal temperatures in the stratosphere, greens below normal temperatures based on climatology. So you see warmer temperatures closer over there towards the Arctic Ocean. You see below normal stratospheric temperatures there across Western Canada. And then over here, now on the right, this is the GFS forecast for the stratospheric temperatures for the 3rd of November, next Friday, showing warming temperatures in the stratosphere across just over New England and working our way up to the North Atlantic side of things. The cooler than normal stratospheric temperatures remain over Western Canada. Polar vortex update. This is from the European forecast, showing very similar situations as of 27 October. Cooler than normal stratospheric temperatures Western Canada, warmer than normal stratospheric temperatures over the Arctic area, specifically over northern Siberia in this case. And then over here on the right is European forecast for stratospheric temperatures next Friday, the 3rd of November, showing a continuation of below normal stratospheric temperatures in Western Canada and warming stratospheric temperatures generally over New England and the North Atlantic sector. And then the Jeff's GFS Ensemble forecasting system, showing very similar to the previous two models I discussed. And then over here on the right is the forecast from the Jeff's model for the stratospheric temperatures for next Friday, the 3rd of November, showing below normal or cooler than normal temperatures in the stratosphere of Western Canada and warmer than normal stratospheric temperatures in the North Atlantic sector. So generally good agreement for the next 7 days on this. Looking at the zonal mean zonal winds as well as the stratospheric temperatures, this is from Zach D. Lawrence, courtesy of ZD Lawrence from strataobserve.com. This is the zonal mean zonal winds at 10 hectopascal level, way high above the atmosphere, up into the atmosphere at 60 degrees north latitude, okay? So what is happening here? You see these downturn in the models? By the way, the models are generally indicated with different color schemes. So for example, GFS would be the orange line. The GEOs, we have the Jeff's Ensemble average is the dark green line, and etc. Okay. So in general, we have zonal mean zonal winds in meters per second here on this y-axis, ranging from 10 to 45 meters per second. We see a dip, a decrease. Notice how there's a dip in these model runs here, these models showing a decrease or a dip in the speed of the zonal mean zonal winds in the stratosphere at 10 hectopascals, way, way high above us. But generally that downturn, that deceleration or decreasing of wind speeds in the stratosphere is generally indicative of a weakening stratospheric polar vortex. But now you notice after the 1st of November, as we get the 1st right on over to the 12th of November, there's a little bit more spread and uncertainty as far as strengthening of these winds. But nonetheless, the trend is for strengthening of the winds, which is quite normal as we get into November. These winds strengthen in association with the stratospheric polar vortex because of the larger temperature gradient or difference between the polar areas and the lower latitudes or even the mid-latitudes in the winter season. So this is a normal thing. We're expecting we have a weakening polar vortex in the stratosphere initially around Halloween, and then we see an increase in strength of these winds. As far as the stratospheric temperatures here on the right, generally good consensus amongst all the models that are shown here. General steady temperatures at about 212 Kelvin, and then you see a drop off or a cooling of the stratospheric temperatures between the 5th of November and the 13th of November. Overall, the wind direction does remain westerly in the stratosphere, so we're not seeing these winds decelerating into negative territory, getting negative values. That would be indicative of a reversal of the winds from west to east, but we're not seeing that. Here is the latest ensemble forecast model guidance, European, here EPS. This was as of yesterday, Friday the 27th of October, showing this huge upper level ridge, this upper level high height center position over Savannah, Georgia, extending northeast up to mid-Atlantic and New England, producing very mild late October temperatures into the 70s and 80s. We have this troughing generally out over the Pacific Northwest and Northern Plains and in Montana. You already saw snowfall where you are there in Montana. And then we have this huge upper level high height center, upper level ridging that is working its way northward into Alaska. By the time you get to Monday here in the upper right, we see the upper level ridge still really in control. It has shifted slightly to the east, just off the west coast of British Columbia, extending northward along the west coast of Canada. We see this height center, these higher heights, leading to downstream troughing. We do see the ridge that looked very strong yesterday on the 27th of October, now getting a little bit more suppressed, a little more stretched out and pushed to the south as we have this deepening upper level trough moving in from the northwest on Monday. By the time we get to Thursday, next Thursday, the 2nd of November, we still have that upper level ridge positioned right along the immediate coast of western North America, including Canada, and extending northwestward the ridge axis into Alaska, producing quite the mild temperatures and dry conditions. And downstream of that upper level ridge, we have much colder conditions across the mid-Atlantic, right up to New England. Anywhere in this green coloring indicates anomalously low heights, anomalously lower heights. And so those are associated with much colder temperatures and troughing. And then over here on the far right, we see a little bit of a relaxation of the troughing. It lifts out. We have now more of a west to east zonal jet stream by the time we get to 5 November, and some milder temperatures, some gradual milder temperatures, gradual warming or moderation from the mid-Atlantic to New England by the time we get to next weekend. The Jeff's V12 forecast, very similar as the EPS here from yesterday, the 27th of October, and just a mammoth upper-level high height center over southern Alaska. The trough across the northern plains begins to start making its move to the southeast. We have this huge upper-level ridge yesterday and very mild temperatures. Temperatures were in the lower 80s across southeastern Virginia yesterday, believe it or not. And then over here on the right, upper right, is the forecast for Monday, the 30th of October, showing that upper level ridging continuing to move, will basically be positioned right off the west coast of Canada, extending northward to Alaska. And then we got this troughing that's really digging into the Midwest and pushing its way through the Midwest. This ridge is weakened dramatically. And then over here in the bottom left, the forecast for Thursday, the 2nd of November. Look at the troughing now that's well established across eastern Canada, across New England, extending down the mid-Atlantic. So very, very chilly temperatures, mid-Atlantic northward to New England and into parts of eastern Canada by the 2nd of November, next Thursday. We still have a little bit of remnants of higher than normal heights across the western portions of North America at this time, but it does appear that this ridge does weaken. And then finally, at the bottom right, this is the forecast for next Sunday, the 5th of November, showing again return to more of a west to east zonal flow in the jet stream. And so we'll get milder conditions generally from coast to coast at this point in time, with the coldest temperatures associated with the lower than normal heights across eastern Canada in this green color in here. All right, one thing I want to mention, let's see, I have a couple things I want to mention. I'm about to get to my final thoughts, but really, I've been focused on this and I've been watching this closely since the start of autumn. But we have a lot of cold available air up on this side of the northern hemisphere, up in Canada. There is just, you could just see it, right? So you get like these troughs. If you get these troughs to dig in, it's really going to allow this much colder air to move south into the United States. And so we'll see how things progress. But I just wanted to show you the purple coloring, the green, that all indicates very cold air. And ultimately, this is going to work its way into the eastern United States as we head towards Halloween. All right, so here are my final thoughts based on everything we discussed tonight. Number one, MJO is in weak phases 8. Then it's going to rotate into weak phase 1. And then, good model consensus for the MJO, potentially rotating into the null phase to the 10th of November. That means minimal impact to the United States weather. The Bureau of Meteorology model, the BOM model, is forecasting a more pronounced rotation into phase 8 in November. We'll have to wait and see if that actually plays out. Phase 8 does favor colder temperatures across the eastern U.S. this time of year, while phase 1 during the month of October actually favors milder temps across the eastern U.S. So we'll have to watch that transition from 8 to 1. One thing I wanted to point out, though, is that these temperature composites for MJO, they do not stay the same. So, for example, when we flip the calendar on Halloween evening, when we flip that calendar over to November, phase 8 is colder, favors cold temps across the east, and phase 1 suddenly switches. It now favors colder temperatures across the eastern U.S. in November. So when I mention these things right here, these two statements, what phase 8 and phase 1 favor, I'm basing it off of October's composite, not November. All right, we do see moderate El Nino conditions really established, and they continue across the equatorial eastern and central Pacific. I did not change this yet. That is now 1.38 degrees Celsius above normal water temps in Nino 3.4 region. Just 2 weeks ago, this value was 1.13. So yes, things are getting warmer in Nino 3.4 region as far as temperature anomalies for the water. Now, what does the El Nino generally favor? It favors troughing and cooler temps across the southeastern U.S., a more suppressed southern storm track. If we just looked at El Nino alone and isolate that for the winter. Sea surface temperature anomalies generally across the rest of the globe outside the equatorial tropical area. We see warmer than normal water across the Northwest Pacific, across North Atlantic, southwest of Greenland. We see cooler than normal waters located over the eastern Indian Ocean. That's associated with the strongly positive IOD, Indian Ocean Dipole. Models are indicating a negative AO phase right on through the 10th of November. That negative phase favors colder temps across the eastern U.S. Beneath the higher pressure, higher heights, and warmer temperatures to the north across the Arctic. When you get a negative AO, you get colder temperatures generally across the eastern U.S. beneath higher heights and higher temperatures to the north. Models are also indicating a slightly negative to neutral NAO through the 12th of November. Now, the EPS 46-day forecast is indicating a neutral NAO through 11th of December, something we'll have to keep an eye on. But if we stay in negative territory with the NAO, that generally favors cold temps across the eastern U.S., colder than normal, with a blocking upper level ridge across the northwest Atlantic. Neutral NAO favors near average temps with more of a west to east zonal jet stream and lack of blocking. And then this page here, models indicating a positive PNA. We looked at that through the 10th of November. Neutral conditions for the PNA then are favored from 11 November through early December. So what does a positive PNA do for you? It gives you below normal heights, troughing, and colder than normal temps over the eastern U.S. generally, with a higher than normal heights and ridging and milder temps across the western U.S. That's what a positive PNA does for you. Now, models are indicating a sharply negative Eastern Pacific oscillation EPO through 5 November, then turning to neutral. Negative EPO favors upper level ridging over the Gulf of Alaska and the Northeast Pacific with a downstream trough and colder temperatures over quite a large area of the United States with a negative EPO from the northern plains right to the East Coast. And then models are indicating a weak stratospheric polar vortex right on through the 31st of October. The zonal mean zonal winds are decreasing or dropping in speed through the 31st of October. Then we see increasing zonal mean zonal winds in the stratosphere in early November. So we will see that weakening vortex. That generally indicates colder temps across the eastern U.S. in early November. And we will see a strengthening vortex, however, as we move into the November timeframe, beyond the first week of November especially. Now, a stronger than normal polar vortex in the stratosphere generally indicates warmer temperatures across the eastern U.S. Overall assessment then, this is going to be a little lengthier than normal tonight. We're going to see a turn to colder temperatures in the eastern U.S. and the mid-Atlantic. We're going to see that first major push of Arctic air coming from the northwest, definitely establishing itself, definitely all the way to the eastern seaboard, all the way to the coast. The first week of November, it's going to be quite chilly this upcoming week as the upper level trough really digs in. Now, the PNA has trended more strongly positive, which tends to mean that we're going to have higher than normal heights, even stronger or greater above normal heights than normal with a strongly positive PNA as we head into early November. We also have that weakened stratospheric polar vortex. I believe that's definitely impacting the temperature anomalies as well. And the MJO is weak in phase 8. Generally, it's colder temps. It also indicates colder temps in the east. But then rotating into phase 1, which would be milder across the eastern area, mid-Atlantic, south to the Gulf Coast. But phase 1 does change when we get into the months of November, December, January, February. Keep in mind the MJO, and there it is. I just basically said that, okay? So once we flip the calendar to November, the MJO phase 1 no longer is favoring milder temps in the east, but rather colder than normal temps. The Indian Ocean dipole, that is strongly positive, but the AMO, the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, is also positive. Now, I didn't really talk about the IOD and show you any kind of graphics. I didn't show you the AMO as well in this teleconnections discussion, but just realize that these are some additional background things that are going on in the atmosphere globally that can have global impacts. IOD is positive, and we have the AMO, which is also positive. And we also have the easterly QBO. I did talk and show you that. So overall, final slide for tonight's presentation. We have a positive IOD that's going to favor, generally from research, positive IOD, which we have, favors a positive NAO pattern during the winter months, while a positive AMO and a negative QBO favor a negative NAO during the winter months. Now, why do I make these points here, this first bullet? Well, because yes, we have a very strongly positive IOD, and yes, in the winter of 2019-2020, we had a strongly positive IOD then, and we had a positive NAO most of that winter. We had a very strong polar vortex in the stratosphere. All the coldest air remained well to the north of the United States during the winter. Very mild winter overall, 2019-2020. So yes, positive IOD. Okay, that does favor that. But then when you have other teleconnections indicating something different, such as the positive AMO, those warmer than normal temperatures south of Greenland in the North Atlantic, and the negative QBO, or that easterly phase of the QBO, they favor the opposite, negative NAO pattern during the winter months. So this is going to be one heck of a battle, in my opinion, between that positive IOD and then these two features here, the positive AMO and the negative QBO. It's like which of these teleconnections or climate drivers is going to be the dominant force in the winter months? Time will tell us that. Now, we do see overall the colder temperatures are going to occur from 31 October, Halloween, right through Thursday, the 2nd of November. That will give way to a brief warm-up, milder temps before the next upper trough and surface cold front moves across the eastern U.S. So we're going to, the big thing I'm looking at is, a 30-degree temperature drop in high temperatures between Monday and Tuesday, just in my area alone. That's going to be a shock to the system after feeling so warm the last 3 to 5 days. We're watching the models closely. We're watching the stratospheric polar vortex forecast closely as well, because a negative or easterly QBO generally favors a weaker wintertime stratospheric polar vortex. Stratospheric polar vortex strength is always that wild card each winter. It really is. You don't know if you're getting a weaker or a stronger. Now, I will say I have been seeing the European model come in rather strongly the last week. That European model is showing a weakening stratospheric polar vortex as we get into late November and into December. A weakening polar vortex, potentially a stratospheric warming type event where temperatures really spike in the stratosphere. So this has to be watched. All right. So let's go back to bullet 1. I can have a positive IOD, right, which favors a positive NAO. But what happens if we get a major sudden stratospheric warming of temperatures in the stratosphere and a splitting or an elongation of the stratospheric polar vortex? What happens then? This is going to go to battle against a weakening vortex. So again, all these factors come into play when we talk about winter weather. It's such a dynamic situation, and the smallest details in the atmosphere really matter as far as what type of weather we get. So, bottom line here, there's a lot to watch in the coming weeks, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my information and expertise along to you. Hopefully I break this information down to where it's more understandable. I try to really speak to it so everybody can understand what's going on. But anyway, I've got a lot more exciting videos to come. I'm going to work on a video past East Coast winter snowstorms. I want to do a video on that to come. I also would like to start doing videos on the long range, the medium and long range weather outlooks, and kind of show you what's going on with the weather charts and breaking down the analysis. A lot of exciting times ahead. We're getting close to Halloween. If you have trick-or-treaters at home, I'm sure they're getting excited. I mean, Halloween was always a fun one every year when I was a kid, and I'm sure for everybody at home too, just so much fun. Anyway, that's all I got for now. I hope everybody has a happy Halloween and a safe Halloween, and you're definitely going to need to dress warm in the eastern U.S. for Halloween for sure, because things are going to be taking a drastic change for the cooler. All right, everybody, until next time, take care. God bless everyone.